10 seconds. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the December agenda briefing session. I'll begin by acknowledging the continuing connection of Aboriginal people to country, culture and community, including traditional custodians of this land, the Wadandi and Kaniyang people of the Noongar Nation, paying respects to elders past and present. We'll declare the meeting open at 5 p.m. I'd like to remind everyone that this briefing session is being live streamed and recorded in accordance with Council Policy EMCP2. Members of the public are reminded that no other visual or audio recording of this meeting by any other means is allowed without the permission of the chairperson. Whilst every endeavour has been made to only record those who are actively participating in the meeting, loud comments or noises may be picked up on the recording. Agenda briefings are open to the public and to observe. However, any questions, deputations or petitions are to be presented at the ordinary council meeting. And councillors are reminded that there is no debate-style discussion at the agenda briefing, as this needs to take place at the ordinary council meeting when the issue is set for decision. Attending tonight, we have myself, Vivian McCarthy, Deputy President Lisa Glover, Councillor Peter Gubler, Councillor Grant Patrick and Councillor Anita Lindeman. We are expecting Councillor Mitchell and Councillor Shand later. Staff present is CEO Nick O'Connor, Acting Director of Finance and Corporate Lauren Clifford, Administration Officer Corporate Services Samantha Farquhar, Director of Operations Ross Marshall, Principal Planner Cecilia Muller, and Manager Development Services Michelle Dennis. We welcome everyone who's attending via live stream as well. Apologies this evening are from Councillor Bailey and Councillor Davey. Councillors, would anyone like to request a leave of absence? And there are no other leave of absences for tonight. Announcements from myself tonight, I have a couple here. Just a reminder that the Shire is inviting community comment on the VC Mitchell Park business plan and draft licences and management model. Community members are also invited to a community engagement forum or open day at the Pavilion 1 to discuss the documents and to ask any questions. It's an opportunity, the open day provides an opportunity for community members to see the layout of the building and how that supports multiple user groups and activities. And it'll be open to visitors from 10 a.m. to 3 p.m. All are welcome. The Donnybrook Twilight Markets will be held on Friday the 13th. Wow, that's a bad date, isn't it? From 4 p.m. to 8 p.m. at Ayers Garden. The Lions Club Christmas Carols by Candlelight will be held on the 21st of December from 4:30 to 9 p.m. And we welcome Councillor Shand to the room. They'll be the Christmas Carols by Candlelight will be held at the Amphitheatre in town. And then All Saints Anglican Church are having an interactive Christmas play and activity on Saturday the 21st at 10:30 a.m. to 1 p.m. It provides children with an opportunity to participate or to watch the play. And there'll be a free sausage sizzle and cakes. And finally, on the 26th of January from 9 till 11, the Australia Day breakfast will be held in Ayers Garden. And once again, lots of activities, and the Lions Club will be supporting this event with their barbecue and other commitments that they make to make that a special day. We do have one declaration of interest, item 5 point, sorry, no, we don't. Yeah, at item 4, sorry. Peter Gubler has declared an interest in item 9.1.2, a development application 24052 for the Lingalonga estate, because your bus transport company works with the Lingalonga company.
Sure.
Are there any other, Are there any other declarations of interest?
There is just on my behalf, thanks Shire President, just to item 9.2.7, which is around the seeking council approval of the CEO probationary performance review process, appointing CEO performance reviewers, and authorise the President to approve CEO leave applications. Belt and braces, and I guess for openness and transparency, I'll declare a conflict of interest because it does directly relate to my employment contract. So I'll leave the room for discussion on that matter.
Thank you, CEO. Are there any other declarations of interest? Item 5, public question time is not relevant tonight. Item 6, presentation. There are no petitions at 6.1, and at 6.2 it's not applicable tonight, but next week there will be a presentation by the Director of Operations to present the Council Volunteer Employer Awards, Recognition Awards. So we look forward to that. At 6.3, there are no deputations tonight, of course, but next week Paul Eaton will be making a presentation regarding item 9.1.2, application 24052, additional tourist uses for Lingalonga Estate. At item 6.4, there are no delegate reports tonight. However, next week, the first report will be from myself and Councillor Lindeman and relate to our attendance at the South West Development Corporation's inaugural conference, the Innovative Industries of the Future. And there's a second report that will be presented by Councillor Davey after her attendance at Walga's Large Scale Renewable Energy Forum. And we have Councillor Mitchell entering the meeting. At item 7, confirmation of minutes, 7.1, we have the special council meeting held on 9th of October 2024. Are there any questions about those minutes? At item 7.2, the ordinary council meeting held on the 27th of 24, are there any questions? At item 7.3, we have the special council meeting held on the 4th of December 2024. No questions? Moving on to item 8, reports of committees. 8.1, Audit and Risk Management Committee meeting held on the 13th of November. Are there any questions relating to the meeting? But if we want to ask any questions on the confidential item, we'll have to close the meeting. Item 8.2, the Audit and Risk Management Committee meeting held on the 28th of November 24. Once again, if we have any questions regarding the confidential attachment, we'll need to close the meeting. Item 8.3, Chief Executive Officer Recruitment and Performance Review Committee meeting held on the 9th of December. Any questions? Okay, moving on to item 9, reports of officers. At 9.1, we have the Director of Operations, and at 9.1.1, we have council policy, temporary trading in public spaces. CEO?
Yeah, thanks very much, Shire President, and through you. So, councillors, this item will seek your formal consideration of a draft council policy, which is a new policy around the temporary trading in public places. And it's really just seeking your endorsement for that policy to go out for public comment or go out on public exhibition. I guess the focus of the policy is really identifying areas where this type of itinerant vending can occur. And obviously, once you've identified those areas throughout the Shire in which you want to actually permit or where it is permissible, or you want to have a policy position that it is permissible, then if an itinerant vendor does want to trade in those areas, then they'd need to put in a local law application and pay the relevant fee. So it is somewhat procedural in nature, but a very good policy, I guess, that provides a shared understanding around where this type of activity can occur within the Shire. So I'm not sure whether the Director of Operations or indeed Mrs Dennis has any further comments.
Are there any questions? Councillor Shand.
A couple of questions. Food vans are required to have a licence for trading with food, yes? So there would be 2 applications then? Yep.
Yeah.
Okay, and the second one is, would that also apply to areas that are main roads that are not Shire owned? So I'm thinking like Donnybrook, Boyabrook Road has the leeways on either side. Does that apply there, or is that main roads?
Is it just Shire owned?
Actually, you might need to come up to a microphone, Michelle. Sorry to make you walk.
Sorry, thanks, Madam President. The policy only deals with Shire-owned land. Main roads, those kinds of conversations need to be held with them, but traditionally they don't permit any form of trade within their leeway areas because they're a road network. They're not interested in trade, so that's subject to main road separate approval, but historically they generally don't support those types of applications. But if it was a food vendor trading in a main road, then they'd have to get a food approval, but they wouldn't need a trading permit, if that kind of helps clarify that.
Councillor Glover?
Thank you for that, through the chair. What currently happens when the food, because I know it's an exciting time when the food vans come to town, what happens at the moment? Do they just turn up or do they get permission? What's the story? What's the current procedure?
Thank you, Michelle.
Thank you. So the current procedure is that it's been a bit ad hoc as far as where officers have permitted the trade to be occurring. So the idea of this policy, it's sort of a whole of organisation approach, like everyone's had an opportunity to identify areas from each of their respective areas. So works have some feedback and planning have feedback, and there's also governance, not issues isn't the right word, but in relation to the Donnybrook Park Cafe and the lease we have there. So the idea of this policy is to make it really clear to applicants, hey, if you want to trade, these are the pre-approved locations that we can provide you with some certainty, but if you want to go outside of that, it's an extra process. We have only had one instance where someone just rocked up trading without approval and they were provided with a move-on notice.
Thank you. Any further questions? Councillor Glover?
Sorry, just on a separate sort of part about it, and it's also linked with, because we are putting out a lot of policies at the moment, we are changing, and which is fantastic, I love policies, but when we put it out to public comment, where does that go? Where do we, where do the public know where to find this information, apart from on the agenda or in the minutes? Where do public find this information for public comment?
Who's the best CEO? How would you like to answer that?
Yeah, I'm happy to answer that if you like. So with the, say for example, the last policies that we've just also had council endorse for advertising, one is a planning policy, so that has to go in the newspaper, that's a statutory requirement. The other one technically isn't, but because we're advertising at the same time, we just added an extra line to that advert, and we target specific people. So we have our regular, in this case, traders that we would let know there's a policy out for public comment, and also probably our food businesses that also generally have an interest. So we have a pretty extensive mailing list. So it does go on our website, it does go on the notice boards, it does go out on Facebook. There's quite a few ways that we do it, but then we also target specific people who we think might have an interest, just so we can at least be able to say that we've tried to get as much relevant comment as possible. Particularly food vendors, they tend to have a lot to say about temporary businesses and that perception of them taking away their business. So we want them to have an opportunity as well to comment.
Thank you, Michelle. Councillor Shand.
Sorry, can I just add a question onto that? Where on the website and how on the website? So say the credit card policy recently, so I know it's not this that we're talking about, but where would someone know how to find it, even if you were advertising it?
I feel quite smug because I can answer that one. It's under latest news, am I right, Michelle?
Yes, so there's a latest news section, but there's also a consultation section. So within the website, under consultation, anything that's currently open, so all our development applications, any of the policies, there's a bit of smarts in the website. It's still magic to me, but when the period closes, when the advertising period closes, it automatically is comes down, so it sort of minimises the work that our comms person needs to manage. But yeah, it's within the consultation section of the website, Exhibit A.
And probably just through you, Shire President, just for clarity as well, it would be only those policies that require feedback that would go through the consultation phase. I think you did mention the corporate credit card. That wouldn't require external consultation. That would just be put up through the agenda process, but then on the policy section of the council website as well.
Mine was half-baked then. Councillor Lindemann.
Yeah, through the chair. Would this be affecting markets and festivals on the annual basis and monthly basis? So it's only for ad hoc trade
Michelle?
throughout the whole Shire? So you've got to encompass and name areas in Balingup, Myallia. Do you have to go through all of those areas?
Thank you, Michelle.
Thank you. So in the policy, the draft policy, staff have identified within each of the town sites some areas that we think would be suitable for trading as a bit of an as of right sort of situation. It's not intended to cover markets or anything like that. This sits outside of that. So this is your, there's the food truck people that come and they operate under an event approval. It doesn't capture them. It's the people, if I can use an example, the donut guy. He wants to set up more regularly. So this is about identifying an area that, you know, potentially would be suitable. Other places that we've worked, they've used it to quite good effect in kind of clarifying to everyone, these are the places where we're comfortable that we think are suitable. And then you just apply through the trading permit process.
Thank you, Michelle. Any further questions?
Through the chair, I'm probably taking it a step too far, but from an environmental aspect, you know, cans of drink, biodegradable cup, is that sort of stuff going to be ensured to be used? And also from a health perspective, are we inviting donuts? I shouldn't name anyone. I don't mean to. Just, you know, is there a policy that goes over the top of that that talks about our overall general blue zone healthy environment?
Thank you, Councillor Lindemann. Manager Development Services.
Thank you. So we currently don't have a health plan, a public health plan that stipulates what foods we're prepared to consider. There's other legislation in relation to the single-use items that sits alongside, that is up to every food event, like anyone who's holding an event. I'm going to get the name of the legislation wrong, but it's effectively the plastics ban, the single-use plastic ban, and it's a staged approach. So straws are out, certain cups are out. That sits outside of what we administer. When they first came in, we were letting those particular vendors know because they're not necessarily, I don't say they're not up with all of it, but they don't have a fixed trade location. So we did try and target them and sort of give them a bit more information. But it's been around now for a couple of years, and I'd be very surprised if people still had stocks of straws. And well, they might still have stocks of straws, but they can't actively display them. They can only have them available for people with an actual demonstrated need, so disability purposes and that sort of thing. So they can still have them on board, but they're not allowed to show that they have them, if you know.
Thank you. Any further questions? Thank you. Moving on to item 9.1.2, development application P24052, additional tourist uses, reception centre, camping area and events, Lingalonga Estate. And Councillor Gubler has just left the room.
If everyone doesn't mind, shut that door before it's open on the outside because of the heat coming in.
Yes. Thank you. For those who didn't hear that on live stream, Roscoe, the Director of Operations, is just ensuring our air conditioning is keeping up with the heat coming in the open door. Now, I believe our Principal Planner, Cecilia Mueller, is making a presentation regarding this item. Thank you. And would you like councillors to ask questions at the end of your presentation or throughout?
Doesn't really matter throughout, I suppose.
Okay? Right. Thank you. So councillors, if you show your hand, I'll call it out.
Okay, so I'm just going to talk to the item 9.1.2. That's the development application for additional tourist uses at Lingalonga. Firstly, just so that you can orientate yourself, Lingalonga is approximately 16 kilometres south of Bailinga, and most of the activities occur on lot 945 around here. There's a chapel, an outdoor chapel, very informal in this sort of area here on lot 392, and then these three lots mainly have got mountain bike tracks through them and are used for various events that occur out there. So just on the proposal, I've included a plan that you can have a look at, showing where the different uses are that they are proposing now. First of all, the events, the mountain biking events, mainly occur in this area. Then there's also an application for the reception centre, which is in a marquee, which is located here. They've got a camping area over here and new ablutions here, with a change of use proposal to change the shed to a chalet, or part of the shed, which is actually used for bridal room purposes. There's also a change of use for caretakers and ancillary accommodation, in addition to the manager's residence, which is here. And there's some new chalets that they are proposing over here. They had approval for that in the past, but that approval has lapsed because they didn't commence construction. And then, yeah, so that's just, if you look at your recommended conditions, you will see that we've listed all those uses and the lots on which they occur in the recommendation, just to make sure we're all clear where they're sitting. And then following on from that, just as a bit of a background, they've previously had approval for 12 mountain bike events. They then started doing a couple of other things, building their business, and you did see the application that came through for the weddings during these last couple of months. So that's what their new focus is on, is to make sure they've got the land use rights and all the additional approvals that also sits with that. So the application was processed as normal, mostly to landowners along Southampton Road, then also on the Shire website and to various agencies and also our internal departments. The comments that we received back related, or the concerns from the residents along Southampton Road, was mostly relating to traffic volumes, the road condition, dust, and you'll see that we've added a couple conditions in the recommendation. There's also concerns from DUER about the water supply and the wastewater, some mosquito advice that they've provided. There was mention of the Aboriginal cultural heritage that's mostly around the dam and the creek, and then also bushfire considerations for a site like this. So those are the things that we considered during the application. Just to talk about the conditions again, you will see that this application has been considered on its own merits, so it is a larger site. That's why the conditions looks a bit different from the Jalbrook application that you saw a month or so ago. This reception centre, officers are proposing that it is only for 99 people, and that's based on the fact that that's what the approval is that they currently have for the marquee from which they operate. So it's linked back to the structure. If they want to increase that number, it would require further development application, and it will come back potentially to council if we advertise and there's objections. Then with relating to the caravan and camping area, at the moment that's being limited to 35 campers. That's when, if we give the land use to them, it will be limited because of the current effluent disposal systems that's there. If they do increase those, there is that opportunity that we can increase those numbers without coming back to council, but at the moment it's 35. So that's why we've put the notes in, so that they're clear on what they need to do if they want to increase the numbers. Then the private recreation or the events, we've limited that, or officers are recommending that it's limited to 800 patrons. So that would be possible for them to increase that if they lodge a events application. For the bigger events, there's other risks that we may need to consider. So this will cover most of the events that they have there, but for the bigger events, they'll have to come back and we'll just provide them with some additional advice.
Councillor Glover?
Sorry, just on that particular point, when it's 800 patrons, that's just people coming for the day and then leaving. It's not in addition to, because it doesn't kind of, I guess, is it just people coming and going in that one day, not camping and staying overnight?
For that sort of event, they can still have 35 campers on their site, but anything in addition to that, they would need to come and talk to us about that. Yes. You will also, I'll just jump to this one as well, because talking about the events, anything over 800 people will require a separate application, but then we've also, similar to what we've done with Jalbrook, listed a number of matters that they do need to consider when they have an event, just to make sure that they've got sufficient toilets and water, and that all the temporary structures are suitable and securely attached to the land. So just standard advice for them to consider. And then bushfire was a big consideration. In this case, I do want to point out that again, we've included conditions where the applicants are requested to comply with certain aspects of their bushfire management plan, which is it is attached to the attachments for this agenda. And in this document, there's the table that lists all the things that they need to do. So they would still need to consider those. They've got a bushfire emergency plan, and they've got a bushfire emergency evacuation plan. So that's the BEEP. They've called it an information poster, but it contains the information in a BEEP. And then also we've included a recommended condition that it's closed when the fire danger rating is extreme or catastrophic, similar to the previous approval for Jalbrook. So there's nothing different. The only thing is with this proposal, we were running out of time a little bit, so I've just received the final advice from DFS yesterday, and I will be including that in the final, with the final agenda item, just to make sure that all the information is available, but there was nothing in there that materially changed anything. It's just, again, putting that decision-making back to council as the decision maker. Also, following on from the submissions that we have received and concerns raised by the Shire Works and Services Department, there is a condition for prior to the commencement of an event with more than 300 people, and after such an event, that the gravel portions of Southampton Road, which would be basically this whole stretch here, which is nearly 10 kilometres, would need to be graded, and that would be at the cost of the applicant. I have spoken to the applicant who only received these conditions. Also, I spoke to him this morning, but I think he only realised that the After I've emailed it on Friday, he only looked at the application yesterday. He is a bit concerned about this condition, and he may mention that at his deputation. I've asked him about the number of events, that's more than 300 people, and he did say it's likely just going to be 3 or 4 events in a year. But obviously the cost would be something that he would be concerned of. So that's...
What is the approximate cost for grading that road?
When I spoke to Damien, he mentioned $3,000, $3,000 to $4,000 to grade that stretch. But there has been concerns about the road and the upkeep of the road, especially, you know, after these big events. So there have been complaints received, and the Shire had to do some grading there where it wasn't, the works plan doesn't provide, you know,
The
for
frequency?
the frequency. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Would there be some way to tie in with our works? Because I noticed it was 2 or 3 times a year, and that's been budgeted for, no?
It's been,
Whether or not there could be something
Some
done
sort of-
together so that, you know, if a large event,
Director of
is
Operations?
there some way we could tie it in to help alleviate some of that?
Thank you, Madam President. I like your logic, but it doesn't work in practice. If we start planning our works around community events, I might as well just go up the depot and hand myself over because I won't be popular. So we often do consider that, but we wouldn't advise that we should try and coordinate it. It would be very onerous. And plus, to be honest, it creates a bit of complacency as well. So yeah, I wouldn't recommend it.
Councillor Patrick.
Thank you. Unrelated to the road bit, which I agree, you know, is a concern. My question, which may lead to another question, True Grit as an event that they hold out there, does that require a new licence every year, or do they have a scheduled licence? And the reason I ask that is in looking, where they're looking at putting the chalets is where all the parking happens for True Grit, and it is jam-packed of hundreds and hundreds of cars. I've been there every year, it's been there. So where they're looking to put those chalets is where they currently park. So if it's a new application each year, well, that'll take that into account, so I acknowledge that. But if it's not a new application, is it something that needs to be considered within this application around how they're going to manage the parking for such a massive event, given they want to use some of that land for an alternate purpose?
Sorry,
Madam
Cecilia.
President, thank you. That is one of the separate applications that would require a separate approval. So I'm not 100% sure what their timing is for when they would commence construction of the chalets, but once that has occurred, that is something that we would need to look at when we receive that events application. But that's one of the ones that I've got marked as one of the bigger events that will trigger a separate application.
Thank you. Okay, continuing on.
The other matter that officers have considered is concerns raised regarding dust along the road. And so what we were recommending is that prior to a large event of more than 300 people again, that some signs are placed on 200 metres either side of the existing dwellings along this stretch. So again, that might be something that the landowner would come up with some suggestion for reconsideration, and Michelle and I will also have a chat to him further, just because he's mentioned that there has been some works along that road that after the last site visit, and it may be that there may be an alternative, but we will provide further information along those lines.
Sorry, through you, Shire President. I understand, Ms Mueller, you're looking at undertaking another site visit before the council
Yes.
meeting, just to confirm whether there has been any further works and the extent of those, and potentially, depending on the outcome of that inspection, you may look at amending that condition. Yep.
That's correct, but we have been informed there has been some blue metal placed in this space here by the Forest Product Commission, and that may be something that we could consider being. The applicant mentioned that regionally officers were concerned that using a water cart would create a dangerous situation for people driving on gravel, people not knowing how to drive on these roads, but it may have changed, so it just requires us to go out and have a further look, and I wasn't aware of that, so I need to just consider that and provide further information.
Councillor Shand.
Do you have any idea how many residents are actually in this area that would be affected on that road? Just to give us an idea of how much dust, what are we talking about?
I know there's another residence, but in front of that residence there's a bit of asphalt. So just trying to see if there is I don't have a map that could show that, but it is further up this end somewhere. I think maybe, yeah, I wouldn't be able to show you now. But look, there's not many, and we have sent it to all the lots that has residents along there, and not closer to town though, but there's no one else actually raised a concern. There were only 2 landowners that raised that concern.
Councillor Glover first, and then we'll go Patrick. Yeah.
Just in regard to the comments made about putting the blue metal on the road, that's an interesting take on that, because it must be that road is going to have some forestry work done on it. But will it also be taken into consideration that that's not going to happen every year? It's only going to be happening when there's operations there, and the length of time, like this application is going to go on for years, but that road will continue to deteriorate as well. So it's interesting, but would it be taken into consideration that it's not actually that's not a long-term solution?
Thank you. That is a good point that you're making, Councillor, and it will be, when officers provide further feedback, we will provide you with some information.
Councillor Patrick.
Yeah, just back in relation to the roads. So it's great, we've brought the consultation out to Southampton Road in our shire. This is just from a reputational point of view. Obviously, the property then borders also on the Greenbushes Bridgetown. So I know, again, back to True Grit, you're actually not allowed to access it through our shire. You have to go through Greenbushes and off Marrinup Ford Road. And I know that road gets atrociously dusty and it's a shocking road. Have we done any consultation or anything acknowledging it's not within our shire, but from a reputational risk, if we approve this and all of a sudden linger along to say, well, no, all access for certain events has to come through Marrinup Ford, it's obviously going to have an impact on residents down that side as well, and that'll be based on our decision making. So is there any mechanism in place to actually work with the Greenbushes Bridgetown Shire around those sorts of aspects?
Thank you, Cecilia.
Thank you. The proposal were referred to them, and I haven't received anything back from the Shire. Yeah.
Councillor Mitchell.
Just going back to the fire one, I noticed the condition it recommends evacuation of the property during the extreme and catastrophic. I'm assuming that just means recommended, not a must. So if the organisers decide not to, so be it. Thank you. Is that the case? It's on page 35.
So the condition reads that all activities, so it's condition 5, all activities on site are to be conducted in accordance with the bushfire emergency plan prepared by Bushfire Prone Planning, including the requirement to close the facility during days with a forecast fire danger rating of extreme or catastrophic. So it needs to happen because it includes a requirement to close. So that's that's my take on it.
Thank you. I was reading further down. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, I think we can go on. Thank you.
I think we basically done. Yes,
Cecilia, Principal Planner, thank you so much. That was a very good presentation, and I think the visuals really help. Good.
I have one more question.
One more question,
Yep.
Councillor Shand.
Under the mosquitoes, is it currently being sprayed? Because I notice it says that there are those nasty mosquitoes, and I recently stayed in another shire that had the same problem, and they were spraying around the accommodation facility where we were staying, which I didn't really like, but they have a program of spraying for that very reason. So I just wondered, are they spraying? Have they got some kind of control measure?
Thank you, Cecilia.
I will ask my manager to answer that question if she knows the answer. Otherwise, we can always check with the landowners.
Michelle loves mosquitoes.
Are you right?
Yes, thank you. Thanks for the question. It's really up to individual landowners if they want to take additional precautions. The health department with a number of shires has a pretty significant mosquito control program. Donnybrook Balingup is not part of that program, and that's because, yes, we might have cases of incidents, but not of a high proportion that justifies the expense associated with these coordinated mosquito control programs. So, yeah, it was interesting that the Department of Health actually raised that, and I guess our office of feedback was it's no different to any other bush block. It's, there's a waterway, plenty of kangaroos, so there is plenty of potential, and the department do put out regular notifications, particularly in the north, in the southwest generally, when we get a notification of Ross River virus do you want all the extra stuff? They take the mozzies, they whiz them up, and they check for virus load. So when the mosquitoes trigger a positive Ross River virus incidence or Barmah Forest, it normally shows up in the mozzies before it shows up in the humans. So that's the way they do the additional sort of surveillance and notifications to people to take some precautions. So yes, the best way is prevention.
Thank you.
Thank you. Your knowledge is always amazing.
I love that stuff.
Yeah.
I love it.
Thank you, Cecilia. Well done. Well done. Yeah.
Councillor Goodwin, maybe outside.
Yes. We're just waiting for Councillor Goobler to return to chambers.
Welcome back. Working up this week, Councillor?
And Councillor Goobler has just joined us. Did you find some shade out there, Councillor? Yeah, okay. Moving on to item 9.2.1, schedule of accounts paid as at the 30th November 2024. Do councillors have any questions? And item 9.2.2, the annual report. Do councillors have any questions or comments? Councillor Shand?
I have a comment. I think it's been really well put together, and I love the way and the style that it reads. Very easy read. Well done.
Thank you, Councillor Shand. Councillor Patrick?
Yeah, I just wanted to flag, and I have got the administration's checking. So just in the section that relates to the councillor payments, it's got me down as nil for travel, and I'm pretty sure during that period I had a small amount of travel. So that's just being checked, and it was just for transparency's sake, in case there's a change, that I thought I'd raise it.
I did note that, and I thought you were very generous. No, thank you for picking that up. Any other comments or questions? I concur with Councillor Shand. I thought it was a brilliant report. The presentation, the artwork, the style. It's very personable and very readable. So thank you.
I think you'll pass it on. Thank you.
Okay. Item 9.2.3, council meeting consultation. Council meeting consultation and 2025 meeting dates. Any questions? Or would you rather speak to them? Yes, please.
So,
Yes.
so councillors, so this matter seeks your formal adoption of the 2025 council meeting dates, obviously for next year. There's obviously 2 executive recommendations based on, I guess, the philosophy or policy decision of council. I'll hand over to Mrs Clifford to take you through the detail.
Thank you. I won't go into too much detail. Obviously, just the report outlines the current meeting consultation process, being that we have ordinary council meetings held on the 4th Wednesday of each month, and they're live streamed and they're open to the public. Public are able to come in and ask questions. Agenda briefing sessions are conducted on the 3rd Wednesday of each month, also live streamed and open to the public, but without deputations or public question time. Council workshops are held on the 1st and 2nd Wednesday of each month. These sessions are for councillors to stay informed on current issues and collaborate with staff. These are not open to the public. They're also sometimes held on the 5th Wednesday if it so falls that way. So councillors have been asked to review the current consultation process for the ordinary council meetings, considering the content outlined in the report, their own experiences and the community feedback that they may have been receiving. Council is asked to deliberate on the 2 executive recommendations. The recommendation 1 is status quo. It is what it has been as per outlined just before, whereas recommendation 2 does not include an agenda briefing session. Instead, it sets the dates for an ordinary council meeting and includes at least 2 2-hour council workshops each month, still ensuring that the agenda is provided 7 days prior.
Thank you, Acting Director of Finance and Corporate. Are there any questions? Councillor Shand?
Yeah, for the second recommendation, where we don't have an agenda briefing, would there be a way to compile questions that have been asked by councillors for public viewing so that we still maintain transparency?
Thank you. CEO?
We probably need to workshop that with councillors, but philosophically we could put something in place from an administrative perspective, yes.
Any other questions? I'd like to understand a little, please, of the value that or the investment, please, in doing agenda briefings from a FTE hour point of view, or the...
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
So with respect to having the agenda briefings, obviously it has to be live streamed and the agenda has to be ready the week before prior to the agenda briefing. So that's staff time collating all that information, and then as we know we have the briefing session like we do today, so someone has to get all that information together and collated, put it up on the website, sent out to councillors, and then we have sessions like today, and then the information, we change the information that then goes into the agenda that goes out to the public as well. So sometimes there can be confusion there with staff, councillors and the general public in regards to what information is out there, what information has changed. If we were to have to track the information that changes from an agenda briefing to a council meeting, that's a lot of work to have to do to put that all down in writing. As stated in the report, a lot of it's about like the risk and the discussions that are had between staff and council that don't necessarily need to be made public until such time as it's seen as an important thing that they need to be aware of, or confusing the public with information that may not actually, those discussions may not go ahead. But timeline-wise, we haven't really nutted out how much time is spent on the extra getting the meeting ready in that regard, unless you've got...
But it'd be fair to say, Shire President, I don't want to step into any debate at all. There's, I've asked the relevant officers to make this as a balanced report as possible, so it is really council's decision. But it is, having the agenda briefing is a significant resource impost on certainly the admin side of the business. And obviously then the cost to attend after hours as well, which can be a direct cost or indirect cost through the payment of staff. And I guess the other point that was raised by Mrs. Clifford there around the risk around the accuracy and the finality of information that's provided at this agenda briefing session, and then the changes that are made, and I guess from a broader governance perspective as well, would be, I guess, my personal concerns, not wanting to influence the debate that's going to happen next week.
I have one last question. For just an estimate, how many times would you have, I don't know, loaded the documents up with changes for this meeting, for example, or apart, just on average, like how many times would you?
Yeah, probably not a good day to ask that question, President, to be honest. I think, look, let's be open and honest. I think Ms Farquhar spent all of Thursday and pretty much all of Friday till 4:15 preparing this, and it was all action stations. All of today has been devoted to pulling it together. There was, as councillors would appreciate, when there is haste, sometimes there are errors, and not that I take responsibility as the CEO for the agenda and any inadvertent errors that are made, and there was one that was raised as part of the distribution of this agenda. So yeah, look, it is a time-intensive, a resource-intensive process, and really it's up to council to, I guess, understand that balance. I understand, the reason for introducing was around transparency. I fully appreciate that, but then offsetting the additional staff and financial impact on the Shire.
Thank you. Any other questions? Councillor Gubler.
Just in relation to the agenda, if you're going to do away with agenda briefings, would it be, sort of those important subjects, could they be tabled sort of to the councillors at the same time, so we have more time to, if we've got any questions, we can get them into the, week before the, at least a week before the OCM,
CEO.
if possible.
Thanks for that, Councillor Gubler. Yes, I've mentioned in the report in regards to balancing the transparency with that, also that consultation and being able to have those discussions during council workshops, whether it be that we need to have an extra workshops, if there was DAs submitted that we thought were going to require extra time, that we would make sure that would be on the agenda straight away. It'd just be given that is something that's discussed at the workshop for councillors, so they had as much prior knowledge and time to be able to discuss those matters with staff.
Thank you. Councillor Patrick.
Thank you. Just in relation to the location, now obviously totally acknowledge this place there was money invested into the council chambers to enable the live streaming and to make it as technologically advanced as possible, and therefore as best access to the community. I know last year there was conversation from the community around ideally having one or more held in Balingup to try and sort of, ensure that some of the community members there had the opportunity to attend. Is there the capacity within our current technological and IT setups to facilitate holding council meetings in other locations other than the council chambers?
Thank you, Councillor Patrick. CEO?
Yeah, look, I'll hand over to Mrs Clifford to give an informed response, but my initial discussion with staff around that was no, would require a significant capital investment, and I guess you just need to weigh up, the goodwill or the being seen and the decision-making process being taken to other communities, and the cost and the benefit against that. So I don't know if you had anything further, Mrs Clifford.
Yeah, if I may, you'd be looking at around 60 plus K to get another venue, especially down in Balingup, up to scratch, and that's without doing any preliminary looking at what the Wi-Fi is like. We've got to consider firewalls and security and safety, obviously, and then in the past when we have had council meetings or agenda briefings in Balingup, you're looking at like a whole day that you've potentially got anyone that's up here in Balingup for that whole entire day, and prepping that as well, potentially to be considered. And the fact with the live streaming, it's We did a bit of a, when we did the last, when we looked at this last time, we looked at how many viewers we're having on live stream, and with regards to the fact that we've got a lot of ratepayers that don't necessarily reside within the Shire, so they're actually coming on live stream to watch because they're not actually located here during the week, and also just those being able to, I guess, make it available for anyone who can't physically make it into the room or into bailing up into the facilities that we have that aren't always accessible by everybody.
Thank you, Acting Director of Finance and Corporate. Any further questions? Councillor Glover.
I know that you probably won't have this answer right now, but in regard to the live streaming for the agenda briefings, what's the viewing, what's the number of viewers kind of on average, or per, I know there's some that are going to be a lot more, you know, people will be watching more than ones than others, but on average, how many people do watch the agenda briefing via live stream?
Thank you.
I don't personally have that information on me right now. I can look it up. If you go to the Shire's YouTube channel, you can go to agenda briefings and see how many people are viewing it. And we did put some stats in their last report, and that's something that we can have included in the report for next week if you would like to see that as well. Yeah. And obviously being that it changes as more people view, so it'd just be at a certain date in time, but that's something that we can currently do, noting that most of them are probably staff members as well.
And no doubt, through you, Chair, Mr Clifford, no doubt it would change depending on, you know, the content of the agenda. If indeed there is a particularly controversial matter and or topical matter, maybe, then there'd be more community engagement.
Oh, sorry, Councillor Mitchell.
I'm not very YouTube aware. If you click on and watch it for a minute or the whole thing, it still records one view, doesn't it? Thank you.
Yes. Any further questions? Okay, moving on to item 9.2.4, making Shire of Donnybrook bailing up Waste Amendment Local Law 2024. CEO?
Thanks very much, Shire. This is mostly a procedural matter. I'll just hand over to Mrs Clifford to talk you through the detail.
Thank you. So Council resolved to commence the process of making the Shire of Donnybrook bailing up Waste Amendment Local Law at one of its previous council meetings. The stage included advertising and seeking for submissions on the proposed local law. Council is now asked to consider the submissions that have been received from the public advertising and the ministerial referral, and to officially make the Waste Amendment Local Law. During the submission period, there were no submissions made from members of the public. However, the Minister of Local Government, Sport and Culture Industries suggested some minor editing changes. Those changes are shown in attachment for you. As they're not really very significant, significantly different to the local law as it was proposed, Council can progress with making the amendment and officially making the amendment local law.
Thank you. Any questions? Moving on to item 9.2.5, District Health Advisory Council representation. Would you like to speak to this one?
Very briefly, Shire President, I think this is again a procedural matter. There's always been a number of discussions regarding the background and the benefit of having councillor or elected member representation on this, the Health Advisory Council. It's merely belt and braces governance, seeking council's endorsement for the two elected members to represent council on this other council, advisory council. Yep.
Are there any questions? Okay, item 9.2.6, the adoption of risk management framework and policy and deferral of internal audit. CEO, sorry, I was just checking that I read that correctly.
Very, very briefly, so obviously this is a recommendation that came out of the Audit and Risk Committee councillors. Two limbs to the recommendation, and that's around obviously adopting the council policy around the organisational risk management and more broadly the framework. And then secondly, just around deferring the proposed internal audit schedule for the 25-26. And as part of that discussion at the Audit and Risk Committee, there's a discussion around, I guess, the list of audits that were proposed to be undertaken, and then also the capacity from a staffing perspective to actively engage in those audits. So I might just hand over to Mrs. Clifford. Sorry if I've already stolen all your thunder.
That's okay. I think you've pretty much summed it up. As part of the report, it also detailed that an updated scope for a 2025-26 internal audit would be presented back to the committee after for the committee's consideration following the Financial Management Systems Review and Audit Regulation 17 review, which is currently being undertaken at the time, so that we can have a bit more of an updated scope of work, so that we're not doubling up and wasting time and money on that consideration.
And probably, apologies, just the third limb of that recommendation was notes the CEO will present an alternative use of the allocated budget for internal audit, which I understand was around the $20,000 mark, to address additional risk mitigation. And that may well be, there's been a recommendation that comes out of the current Reg 17 audit, and might be something around the absence of an ICT strategy, and reallocating that fund as part of the budget review process. But I will bring back a report as per that recommendation if it is adopted next week.
Thank you. Any questions? For the next item, I was going to say, oh, now it's your turn to go out in the heat, CEO, but you're used to this kind of heat, so... I did notice that he had a jacket on when he first came in. It's just, yep, tropical heat. Any questions for item 9.2? Oh, sorry, we'll just start with announcing 9.2.7. Approve the CEO probationary performance review process. Appoint the CEO performance reviewers and authorise the President to approve CEO leave applications. Sorry? Yes, you can go. Acting Director of Finance and Corporate.
Okay, so Council, it's requested that you consider the CEO Recruitment Performance Review Committee's recommendation to approve the documentation as per the confidential attachment for the purpose of assessing the performance of the CEO throughout his probationary period. The committee is also recommending authorising the Shire President to approve requests for leave by the CEO, as his contract only allows for Council resolution to approve leave.
Thank you. Any questions? Would you like to call our CEO in?
Good news or the bad? Good news or the bad? You can come back.
I think Councillor Goobler's a bit jealous. You're only out for it. Okay, moving on to 9.3.1, Workforce Plan 2022 to 2026 Preliminary Review. CEO, would you like to speak to this item?
Yeah, so again, just very briefly, through you, Chair. So this item will seek Council's formal consideration of compliance with a resolution passed back at the August OCM, which I guess had a number of limbs to it, which the first one included undertaking a progress review or a review of the current workforce plan that was adopted a while back. And it's just, belt and braces, getting the formal consideration and resolution that we've complied with that as per the content of my report. But there was an in-depth discussion around my preliminary assessment of and feedback on the workforce plan at a council workshop held on the 13th of November. And within the body of the report, I guess it just highlights some of my observations and areas for future focus in doing the more, in-depth review of that workforce plan that will occur before April next year. So happy to take any questions, Shire President.
Thank you. Any questions? Moving on to item 10, elected member motions for which previous notice has been given. We have none. And item 11, there is nothing there to be discussed. Item 12, meeting closed to the public. 12.1, matters of which the meeting may be closed. 12.1.1, we have an RFQ, and 12.2, we have a request for tender. So we'll close the meeting to the live stream and then come back for just to close the meeting. So those who are participating via live stream could safely close down and So we move to item 13, closure of the agenda briefing, and we can now say that the next ordinary council meeting will be held on the 18th of December 2024 at 5 p.m. in council chambers. Thank you, councillors.